My fiancée hit me with a demand I never saw coming. She wanted me to give her parents a share of my business. Said if I didn't, the wedding was off. What I did in response? Well, let's just say it left her completely stunned. I'm 35 years old and I've worked damn hard to get to where I am. My company isn't some massive tech giant like Google or Amazon, but it's mine and I built it from the ground up. No loans, no handouts, no trust fund padding the way. Just me, a half-functional laptop, and a whole lot of late nights that bled into early mornings. There were sacrifices, plenty of them. I passed on vacations, lived off ramen when money was tight, and said goodbye to anything that resembled a work-life balance. So, yeah, I've got a strong connection to what I created. It's not just a business, it's years of blood, sweat, and grinding it out. About a year ago, I met Susan. She was 29, sharp, full of ambition, and had this spark that drew people to her. Confident, stylish, knew exactly how to work a room, basically the kind of presence I never had, and honestly, I admired that about her. We hit it off and started dating. Things were good, better than good, really. For the first time, I felt like I'd found someone who actually got the whole hustle mindset. After a year of being together, I proposed. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet dinner, a simple moment, and a straightforward question, "Will you marry me?" She said yes, and for a little while, it felt like I was walking on air. Wedding planning wasn't exactly my zone, but Susan took the lead like a natural. Venues, menus, flowers, she had it all mapped out, and I was more than happy to let her steer. Or at least I thought I was. Then came the night that flipped everything upside down. We were sitting at the kitchen table about 3 months out from the wedding. Susan had her laptop open, deep diving into Pinterest boards filled with flower arrangements while I sat across from her, half listening and nursing a cup of coffee. I was zoning out, pretending to care about the difference between peonies and roses. That's when she hit me with it. "Babe," she said, using the tone that always meant she was about to ask for something, "we need to talk about my parents." I looked up, eyebrow raised. "Okay, what about them?" She gave me the sweet, casual smile. "Don't you think we should do something meaningful to show our appreciation for everything they've done for us?" At first, I thought she was talking about something small. I mean, hadn't we just taken them to Napa for the weekend? I even got her dad that watch he wouldn't stop talking about. So I asked, "What exactly do you have in mind?" She gently closed her laptop, leaned forward like she was about to drop a brilliant idea, and said, "I was thinking, maybe you could give them a stake in your business." I honestly thought I misheard her. "Wait, what?" I asked, hoping I'd misunderstood. "Just a small piece," she clarified, like that somehow made it okay. "You know, as a thank you gesture. It would mean a lot to them. They've always wanted to be part of something successful." I sat there stunned. Did she really just suggest I gift part of my company, my livelihood, to her parents? "You're asking me to give your mom and dad ownership in my company as a gift?" "Yes," she said, smiling like it was the most normal thing in the world. "It shows respect. It's about including them. They've done so much for me, and this would show you appreciate them too." I couldn't help it, I laughed. I genuinely thought she was joking. "Susan, I built this thing from scratch. Your parents had zero involvement. Why would I give them a piece of it?" Her smile faded. She gave me this look like I was being totally unreasonable. "Because they're going to be your family too," she said. "This isn't just business, it's about relationships. About showing trust and making meaningful connections." That's when I put my coffee down. Suddenly, I was a whole lot more awake. "Susan," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "I don't think you understand how companies work. Giving someone a stake isn't symbolic, it's legal. It's financial. It's real. This isn't like giving out thank you cards at the end of a party." She sighed like I was the one making it difficult. "You're overthinking it. It's just a gesture. They're not going to run the place or anything." I rubbed my temples, trying to keep my cool. "No, it's not just a gesture. It's ownership. It's my company. Your parents didn't help build it. They didn't invest in it. Why would I hand over any part of it?" Her tone changed right then, got sharper. "Because they're my parents, Edward. Without them, I wouldn't be here. Don't you think they deserve something for that?" I stared at her, stunned. Sure, they deserve respect, but respect doesn't mean giving away something I've worked my ass off to build. We didn't talk much more that night, but as I laid in bed later, staring at the ceiling in the dark, I had this heavy feeling that this wasn't just some weird one-off request. Felt like a sign of something deeper. Her suggestion wasn't just out of line, it was flat out entitled. And the fact that she thought it made sense? Huge red flag. Looking back, I probably should have seen it coming. Susan always had a taste for the finer things. She grew up in a world where money wasn't an issue, and she carried this attitude like the best things in life were just naturally supposed to land in her lap. I'd brushed it off before, thinking it was harmless. But now it felt like she saw my business, not as something I'd bled for, but as a convenient token she could use to score points. The next morning, I woke up hoping the whole thing had just been a moment of madness. Maybe she'd sleep it off and realize how ridiculous it sounded. People say dumb things when they're caught up in emotions, right? I made our usual coffee, and for a moment, everything seemed back to normal. She kissed me on the cheek, thanked me for the coffee, and scrolled through her phone while I caught up on emails. I thought maybe, just maybe, we were past it, that she'd dropped it. But nope. Like clockwork, she circled right back. "Babe," she said, setting down her phone. I was thinking more about what we talked about last night. My stomach sank. There was only one thing she could have meant. "Susan," I sighed, already feeling drained. "Do we really need to go over this again?" I really thought that conversation was over. Naively, I figured we'd put it to bed and moved on. But nope. Susan gave me that smile, the one she usually whipped out when she wanted to drag me to some overpriced brunch spot where everything had truffle oil on it. Then she said, "I just think you're not seeing the bigger picture." Apparently, there was a bigger picture I was missing. According to her, this wasn't about money or ownership. It was about showing her parents how much I valued them, just like she did. I sighed, closed my laptop, and braced myself. I could tell I wasn't getting out of this without another round. "Susan, I respect your folks. Really, I do," I said. "But giving them a stake in my business? That's not some heartfelt gesture. That's a legal, financial headache." I leaned back in my chair, trying to keep my cool. Once someone owns part of a company, that's it. It's theirs. Doesn't matter if they sit back and do nothing or try to run the whole thing. And no offense, but your parents wouldn't know the first thing about tech, let alone running a company like mine. She waved that off like it was nothing. "They don't need to know. It's not about that. It's about them feeling included and appreciated." I just stared at her. She was dead serious. Like, truly thought this was a good idea. The rest of the day, I couldn't get her words out of my head. They kept looping in my brain while I tried to work, distracting me from everything else. And I started thinking, is this my future? Just me constantly getting pressured into giving things up to make her happy? Constant guilt trips wrapped up as meaningful gestures? That night, things escalated. We were on the couch watching TV, something mindless to take the edge off, and she suddenly turned to me like she'd been waiting for the perfect moment. "You know," she said like it just occurred to her, "if my parents had a stake in the company, it could really benefit you too." I hit pause. "What are you talking about now?" "They've got a lot of connections," she said, flicking her hair like she was pitching a sales deal. "My dad knows all kinds of people in real estate, and my mom's active in some women's entrepreneur networks. They could help bring in new clients." I rubbed my temples. "Susan, I've been running this business just fine without your parents. I don't need their help. But think about the possibilities," she said, her voice brightening, like she really thought she was onto something. "With their network, you could scale faster. It's not just for them. It's for us. For our future." And there it was. A shift in the angle. Now it wasn't just about making her parents feel special. It was about our future. "Susan," I said, slowly and carefully, "if this is really about our future, then shouldn't you be backing the business I've already built? Not trying to hand pieces of it over to your family." Her smile vanished, and a frown crept in. "I am supporting you," she snapped. "I just think you're being short-sighted. My parents are thrilled about the wedding, and this would make them feel like part of something important." Important? No, entitled. That's what it really was. But I didn't want to blow up on her, not yet. "Look," I said, keeping my tone even, "I know your parents matter to you. That's fine. But this crosses a line." That's when her whole expression changed. The frustration was still there, sure, but underneath it I saw something colder. Something calculating. And it made me uncomfortable. And just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, they did. The very next day, while I was in the middle of work, my phone rang. It was Susan's mom. Her voice came through the line all chipper and sugary like she was hosting a daytime talk show. "Hi, Brian. I just wanted to thank you for being so thoughtful about including us in the business." My heart stopped. I'm sorry, what? Oh, don't be modest, she laughed. Susan told us about your idea giving us a stake in the company as a wedding gift. It's such a generous gesture. We're really touched. You're already part of the family. I nearly dropped the phone. There's been a misunderstanding, I stammered. I never agreed to anything like that. Her tone changed fast. The warmth drained out of her voice in a flash. Oh. Well, that's not what Susan said. Yeah, well, I said, trying to stay polite but firm, Susan and I haven't reached any kind of agreement. And to be honest, I'm not comfortable with the idea. Silence. I see, she finally said. Well, I hope you'll reconsider. This really means a lot to us. I ended the call with my blood boiling. Susan had gone behind my back. She'd told her parents I was already on board with something I'd flat out rejected. That crossed a serious line. When I got home, I confronted her. Why did your mom call me about the business? I asked. She didn't even blink. No guilt? No shame. I thought hearing it from her might help you understand how much this could mean to them. Help me understand? Susan, you made it sound like I'd already agreed to this. She folded her arms across her chest, her whole body language turning defensive. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I just wanted everyone to be on the same page. The same page? I said, my voice rising. This isn't some school group project. This is my business. My work. You had no right to promise anything about it, especially not to your parents. That's when her composure cracked. For the first time, I saw real anger in her eyes. If you can't do this one thing for me and my family, she snapped, maybe you don't care about us as much as you say you do. I was stunned. She was guilt-tripping me again, but now with even more force. You know what, Susan? I said, finally hitting my limit. If this is how it's going to be, maybe we need to rethink a few things. I walked out of the room before she could say another word, my mind spinning. I didn't know what the next move would be, but one thing was certain, Susan wasn't giving up and neither was I. And just when I thought she'd hit her peak with this nonsense, I learned that was just the warm-up. The next morning, I called my best friend, Ronald. If anyone was going to give it to me straight, it was him. As soon as I laid out the story, he let out this long whistle. Dude, this is bad. Like, red alert, run for the hills bad. Yeah, I said deadpan. No kidding. So let me get this straight, he said. She's basically threatening to call off the wedding unless you hand over part of your business to her parents? Pretty much, I said, my voice flat. And she doesn't see how nuts that is? Nope, I replied. Ronald just laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know the kind of laugh people let out when something's so messed up, it's not even funny? That was Ronald. He wasn't joking, he was stunned. Man, I don't even know what to say, he told me. This isn't normal. Not even close. And he was right. The way Susan was acting, it wasn't just strange. It was entitled. And if she was already like this now, before the wedding, what was it going to be like after? Then Ronald asked the question I had been trying to avoid, are you sure you want to go through with this? I didn't have an answer. For the first time, I truly didn't know. Later that night, Susan made it official. We were in the living room barely speaking when she hit me with it out of nowhere. So, she said, arms crossed, have you made your decision? I already knew what she meant, but I asked anyway. Decision about what? The shares, she said flatly. Are you going to do it or not? I looked her straight in the eye. No, Susan. I'm not. She leaned back, almost like she'd been expecting that answer, and said, then maybe this relationship isn't going to work. I stared at her, trying to figure out if she was bluffing. But she wasn't. Her face told me she meant it. Maybe it's not, I said quietly. Her eyes went wide. Like she hadn't actually expected me to call her bluff. You're really willing to throw all of this away over one thing? I shook my head. I could ask you the same question. You're the one making demands and threatening to leave when you don't get what you want. What kind of foundation is that for a marriage? She didn't say anything. Just stood up and walked out of the room. I sat there in the silence, staring at nothing, and it hit me this wasn't just a fight. It was a turning point. And whatever came next, nothing between us was going to be the same again. The next day was a blur. I walked around in a fog, completely out of it. Couldn't focus on work, couldn't think straight. I kept replaying our conversation over and over in my head. Was there still a chance to fix things? Should I be trying harder? Or was this relationship just circling the drain? Then I remembered Sharon, my lawyer, and also a friend who'd seen more than her fair share of relationship disasters. If anyone could give it to me straight, it was her. I called and told her I needed to talk. She didn't even hesitate. Come by this afternoon, she said. We'll figure it out. When I walked into her office, Sharon greeted me with a coffee and a raised eyebrow. All right, Edward, what's got you looking like you've been hit by a freight train? I sat down and unloaded everything, the conversation with Susan, the pressure, the call from her mom, the ultimatum. The whole mess. By the time I finished, Sharon's smile was long gone. She just sat there, arms crossed, a look of disbelief on her face. Let me make sure I've got this right, she said slowly. Your fiancée is demanding that you give her parents a stake in your business as a wedding gift? Yep. And she told you she'll call off the engagement if you don't? I nodded. She let out a low whistle. Edward, that's not just a red flag. That's a parade of them. Like, throw it in the air and run red flag. I know, I said. But what am I supposed to do? I love her. But this? This feels like a hard line. You're not wrong, she said, her voice firm now. You can't give in to this. Not for your sake and definitely not for the future of your company. You give away shares now and you're opening a can of worms you won't be able to close. Like what? I asked, dreading the answer. Well, she began, first off, once you transfer those shares, they're legally owned by her parents. That means they can do whatever they want with them, get involved, ask questions, or worse, sell them off. I felt my stomach knot. And if you and Susan get married? It gets even murkier. Those shares could end up being considered marital property. Which means in a divorce, they could be split. You lose control. So this could mess me up from multiple directions, I muttered. Exactly, she said. And let's be real, if she's making demands like this now, what's going to stop her from making even bigger ones later on? I stared down at my coffee, the weight of everything settling in. Sharon was right. This wasn't just about this one issue. It was a preview of what life could look like if I kept letting this slide. So what do I do? I asked. She leaned in, serious now. First, protect your business. Update your operating agreement, make sure no shares can be transferred without your clear, written consent. Lock it down tight. I've already kept my business finances separate from personal stuff, I said. Good. Keep it that way. And second, no more soft responses. Be clear with Susan. This isn't happening. Period. No more back and forth, no room for debate. I nodded slowly. And if she can't accept that? Sharon said, her voice softer now, then you might have to walk away. I know that's hard, but you've got to think long-term here. A healthy relationship doesn't run on ultimatums and manipulation. I left her office feeling more clear-headed than I had in days. That night, I walked into the apartment and saw Susan on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just thrown a bomb into the middle of our relationship. I set my bag down and stood in front of her. We need to talk. She looked up guarded. About what? The business. Your parents. All of this. She let out an exaggerated sigh, already sounding annoyed. Edward, we've been over this. I don't know why you're making such a big scene. Because it is a big deal, I said. And I need you to hear me clearly, this isn't going to happen. I'm not giving your parents a stake in my company, I told her, voice steady. And that's final. Her eyes narrowed, sharp with frustration. So that's it? You've made up your mind and I'm just supposed to go along with it. Yeah, I said, holding firm. You are. Because this isn't about love or respect or family, it's about you and your parents trying to take something that isn't yours. Susan stood up fast, her face going red. How dare you? My parents have done nothing but support us and this is how you repay them? By being selfish and greedy. Selfish and greedy? I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. I've bent over backwards to make your family feel welcome. I planned that Napa trip. I bought your dad that fancy watch. But giving them a chunk of my company? That's not appreciation, Susan. That's entitlement. She folded her arms and glared at me. Fine. If you're so determined to be selfish, maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. Her words just hung in the air. She expected me to flinch. But I didn't. I looked right at her and said, calm as ever, I've already come to that conclusion. For a moment, she looked completely blindsided. Like she honestly didn't think I'd go through with standing my ground. You're really willing to throw away everything we've built together over this? She asked. I shook my head. You're the one threatening to walk away because I won't hand over something I spent years building. What kind of marriage starts with ultimatums and power plays? She didn't respond, just turned on her heel and left the room. And as I sat there, alone in the silence, it hit me this wasn't just a rough patch. This was the point of no return. The next morning, I called Sharon and filled her in. You did the right thing, she said, no hesitation. But be ready. If Susan's this entitled now, she's not gonna let go without a fight. And man, was Sharon right. Over the next few days, Susan went full court press. She pulled every emotional lever she could think of. Cold texts, angry voicemails, passive-aggressive comments. She even tried rallying some of our mutual friends to her side, spinning the story like I'd somehow betrayed her. Fortunately, most of them saw through it. They knew me. They knew the kind of guy I am. And more importantly, they knew Susan. By the end of the week, there was no doubt left in my mind. This relationship was done. It couldn't be saved. I'd seen her real side, and once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. When Susan and I finally sat down to talk again, I wasn't angry. I wasn't confused. I was just done. I'd already cycled through every emotion, shock, disappointment, sadness, and all that was left now was clarity. She thought she could wear me down with enough pressure. She didn't understand the kind of man I am. I don't bend for threats. That evening started out quiet. Too quiet. Susan barely said a word all day, which immediately raised a red flag. Normally, she'd be blowing up my phone with wedding checklists or venting about table linens. But that day? Radio silence. I figured she was prepping for another round of let's make Brian give up his company. Sure enough, right after dinner, she looked at me and said, "So, have you thought any more about what we talked about?" I put my fork down and looked her dead in the eye. "Susan, I've thought about it, and my answer's the same. It's no. I'm not giving up part of my company." Her arms crossed tight across her chest. "You're acting like I asked for the whole company. It's just a small stake, a token. You're turning it into this big dramatic thing." "Because it is a big thing," I snapped. "Once I give up shares, that's real. That's legal. Your parents could sell their part, interfere in business decisions, or worse. And if we ever got divorced, that stake could be considered marital property. This isn't about appreciation, it's about protecting everything I've busted my ass to build." Her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. "If you're so paranoid about protecting your precious business, maybe you shouldn't be getting married at all." We sat there in thick, tense silence, just staring at each other. And then I said, calmly but firmly, "You know what, Susan? Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't be marrying you." She stared at me, breathing heavy, eyes locked on mine. Finally, she hissed, "You'll regret this. My parents will think you're a greedy, selfish asshole, and so will everyone else." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Go ahead. Tell them whatever you want. Hell, post it on Facebook for all I care. But just so we're clear, I've got the receipts. Every message. Every manipulative attempt to guilt-trip me into this mess." Her face went pale. "Wait, are you saying you recorded me?" "I didn't plan to," I said, standing my ground. "But after that stunt with your mom calling me, I realized I needed to protect myself. So yeah, I've got proof. And if you try to twist this story, I won't hesitate to tell the truth." She opened her mouth like she was about to argue, then shut it again. She knew I had her. Without another word, she snatched her purse and stormed out the door. The next few days were chaos. Susan called me nonstop, some calls filled with anger, others full of tears. I ignored most of them, but eventually I picked up once, just to hear what she had to say. "Edward," she said, voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I was under a lot of pressure from my parents. They've been on my case about making sure the marriage is secure, and I let it get to me." "That's not an excuse," I said, keeping my voice level. "Your parents may have pushed you, but you tried to push me. You didn't care how that made me feel. You didn't stop to think about what it meant." "I know," she sniffled. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you. I just wanted to make my family happy." I let out a slow breath. "If you really loved me, Susan, you wouldn't have tried to manipulate me into giving up something that means everything to me. Love isn't about forcing someone to sacrifice their dream just to keep your parents happy." She started crying again on the phone, but honestly, I wasn't in the mood to listen anymore. I hung up and blocked her number right then and there. Over the next few days, Susan tried every trick in the book. She wasn't done, not by a long shot. She called my parents. She reached out to my friends. Hell, she even contacted a few people I work with, doing her best to cast me as the villain in her little drama. The first wave of backlash came from her parents. No surprise there, they were pissed. Even though I blocked Susan, her folks still managed to get through. The first call came from her mom. And let me tell you, the woman missed her calling as a politician. The way she could twist the truth into something that almost sounded reasonable? Honestly impressive in a nauseating kind of way. "Hi, Edward," she started, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I just wanted to touch base and clear up any misunderstandings. I'm sure Susan didn't mean to upset you. I didn't bother playing along." "There's no misunderstanding, Mrs. Susan," I said flatly. "Susan tried to pressure me into giving you and your husband part of my business. And when I said no, she threatened to call off the engagement. That's exactly what happened." She paused for a beat, then tried again. "Well, maybe she didn't explain it properly. You know how passionate she can be. She just wanted to include us because we care so deeply about her future and yours." I almost laughed at that one. "With all due respect," I said, "this isn't about passion or care. I built this company from nothing. I'm not about to hand over a piece of it just to keep the peace, and I'm definitely not going to let anyone try to strong-arm me into doing it." That was when her tone changed. The warmth vanished in an instant, replaced by ice. "Edward, I think you're being extremely short-sighted. Family means compromise. If you can't understand that, maybe Susan was right to question this relationship. I didn't flinch. Maybe she was, I said. Goodbye, Mrs. Susan. I hung up before she could get another word in, and then I blocked her number too. The second wave hit not long after. This one came from mutual friends. Susan had clearly wasted no time spinning her side of the story to anyone who'd listen. According to her, I was some control freak who didn't value family, who refused to share my success she implied I somehow owed to others. It didn't take long for the texts to start rolling in. Most were cautious, curious. A few folks reached out just to hear my side. One of them was Brenda, a friend we'd both known for a couple of years. She texted me something like, "Hey Edward, I heard some stuff from Susan and I just want to understand. Did you really end things because she wanted her parents involved in your business?" I sighed. Figured I might as well clear things up before the rumors got any worse. I texted her back. "Brenda, here's the short version. Susan demanded that I give her parents a stake in my company as a wedding gift. When I said no, she threatened to end the engagement. I wasn't going to be manipulated into giving away part of my life's work. I walked away. I've got the receipts if you want to see them." To her credit, Brenda responded quickly. "Wow, that's not the version I heard. Thanks for explaining. I'm really sorry you're dealing with all this." That was how most of the conversations went. People would reach out after hearing Susan's spin, but once I explained the real story and sometimes sent along a screenshot or two, the truth spoke for itself. A few folks stayed neutral, which I could live with. But most had my back. Meanwhile, Susan's support system was crumbling. The sympathy she expected wasn't coming. And as her version of the story started to fall apart, she shifted tactics again. Enter, round 3, Susan herself. When the guilt trips and smear campaign failed, she pivoted to apologies. Suddenly, I was getting emails, voicemails, these drawn-out, emotional monologues full of trembling voices and tearful regret. One voicemail started like this. "Edward, I'm so sorry. I let my parents get into my head. I pushed you too hard. Please, can we just talk? I love you. I don't want to lose you." I didn't even finish listening. I deleted it. Love? Is that what she was calling this whole circus? Manipulation. Ultimatums. Pressure. Lies. If that was love, then I didn't want any part of it. Then a few days later, an email landed in my inbox. This one was longer. More desperate. "Edward, please. I made a mistake. I was under so much pressure. I wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can't we work this out?" I read it once, then closed the window and archived it. I'd already made my decision. There was no fixing this. Susan had shown me who she really was, and I believed her.